private finance initiative that the government's undertaken. This we accept insofar as it relates to clinical services.
But that's for new building. I'm talking about the assets the NHS presently has. Would you consider selling any of those off, or do you rule that out?
No, we certainly don't want to sell off assets that are an essential part of a proper National Health Service.
Do you rule out selling off any of the assets of the National Health Service?
No, we've already said to you on the private finance initiative of the Conservatives that they have underway at the moment. We are perfectly happy for there to be a relationship between public and private sector. What we are opposed to, which is what the Conservatives are trying to do, is to end up in a situation where you are privatising basic clinical services. Okay. We're not in favour of that at all. Okay. But I should make it quite clear to you, as I've said again, the changes that we want in the National Health Service are changes that allow us to get back to the basic principles of the National Health Service, run it as a proper public service again, not end up in a situation where we're spending hundreds of millions of additional pounds in bureaucracy and administration, not providing a better service for the patient.
You've said throughout...
Now, I've been asked this question about the tax burden that people will pay, and what I point out is that, of course, under the Conservatives' proposals, under the Conservatives' Red Book figures in their budget, the tax burden is set to rise over the next few years.
We're speaking about what...
David, if you would just allow me to finish, I am pointing out the fact that even under Conservative proposals, the tax burden is going to rise, and precisely for that reason, I cannot give commitments that the Labour Party can do other than that.
Well, I don't want to confuse people.
I've already said to you, we are committed to ensuring that the basic and top rate of tax does not rise. The tax burden is due to go up under the Conservatives, but my point to you is this. There are no hidden spending commitments in the Labour Party programme
that
require hidden taxes.
I didn't ask you about that. I wanted to just ask you about taxation.
But taxation is as a result of spending. And if you would just allow me to complete the point, there are no hidden spending commitments that require hidden taxes. I'm not going to sit here and write a budget for you.
Of course not.
I'm not going to go through all the various reliefs and allowances and go through each one. Yeah. But the two things that people are able to know about the Labour Party is, one, we've given that commitment on the basic and top rate of tax not going up over the lifetime of this Parliament, and two, our spending programme is properly and fully costed. And in addition to that, we've said, as we can, we'll try and get the tax bills of ordinary families down.
But
I would like to get them down, not
but
up.
as you might...
No, they certainly shouldn't expect that. But what I'm saying to you is this. I'm not going to end up writing a budget. I would give you the same answer as Kenneth Clarke if he was sitting here. What I can say to you is that any programmes that we have that require the spending of money, for example, just to run through them, we've said that we will reduce class sizes for all 5-, 6 and 7-year-olds, funded by phasing out the assisted places scheme. We will spend more money in the National Health Service, spent by reducing the appalling and rising costs of bureaucracy administration. We will have the windfall levy on the excess profits of the privatised utilities. That will allow us to put in place a programme to get the long-term and young unemployed back into the workplace. So there are a whole series of measures which require the spending of money, but in each case, any spending programme that we have is properly costed and financed. Now that, in my view, is what people are entitled to know. In addition, of course, they want to know what our principles are in the tax system. And those principles are to encourage work, to encourage opportunity, to encourage investment, to encourage savings. And if we can, I don't make this as a commitment or a guarantee, but if we can, I would like to do a starting rate of tax of 10 pence.
Yes,
because we've brought down taxes for people at the top end, it's time to do something for those at the bottom end.
People may...
You said that we had to stick to the government spending limits, as if that was some sort of criticism.
I didn't say you chose to. I didn't say you had to.
Of course, we have had to do that.
Labour chose to do that. You could have done other things.
We did that precisely because of the state of the public finances that we will inherit.
If that's a tiny sum of money.
No, I don't accept that. Let me explain to you.
It's 1%. Well, let me just finish the question.
First of all, there are 3 different ways in which we could spend money far better and more effectively in education. The first is not to subsidise a small number of children at private school, but to reduce class sizes for all 5-, 6 and 7-year-olds. I mean, there are around about 1 million children that can benefit from that. Secondly, we don't believe the nursery voucher scheme is right. We will replace that with proper nursery education. Thirdly, we have said, as you get the welfare bills down, these appallingly high bills for social and economic failure under the Conservatives, then you can release more money into education and health and the services where you really want them. But it isn't just about spending money, you know. Education isn't just about spending money. You look at some of the other things that we're proposing.
No, but hang on, you're the people who complain that our specials are about spending.
Of course, and I've said there are various ways in which we can increase expenditure on education. I've just given you examples of that, but what I'm saying to you is it's not just about spending money. I mean, the commitment that we have, of course, is over the lifetime of the Labour government to increase spending on education as a proportion of our national income, as we reduce it on the costs of social failure and long-term and youth unemployment. That I believe that we can do as a result of the programmes that we put forward. But it isn't just about money.
But why not save a bit more? Why not save a bit more?
It's essential for the defence of our country.
Defence
Defence is less important. Defence is extremely important for this country. It's the first duty of any government to defend our country, and we'll do so. But I want to come back, if I might, to education. And you're saying, well, it's all about money. It's not all about money. Look, if you got, for example, at every school, supposing you put the Labour programme into practice, in every school, we've got a situation where we're going to target those schools that are failing or not improving sufficiently and put in place a programme to raise the standards there. Head teachers to have a proper qualification for competence, reform of teacher training, modernising the comprehensive system so that instead of going back to the 11 plus, we take account of the different abilities of the children. Literacy, and even in opposition, under the chairmanship of Dennis Stevenson, the businessman, to get new technology into the schools. These things would make a dramatic difference. Broadening the A-level syllabus, reforming higher education funding,
but still no money.
Bringing into being a university for industry that gives you the chance to get access to the best.
But all scheme
money too. Look, what do people in this country want us to do?
Money spent on education, education,
yes,
and spend more money on
some of the ways that they can do that. But
if you want to achieve it.
That's not all that they want. What they want most of all is a government that's going to make a fresh start on tackling the problems of this country. They've had huge tax rises under the Tories. The Tories are spending large sums of money. We can't just go on taxing, spending more. We've got to look at how we spend that money, and we've got to look at where the tax burden falls. Now, I believe that we can make a real start on education in this country. And let me tell you, if we are elected, it won't be just the priority of our government for a day and then forgotten again like this lot. It will be the priority of our government right the way through that term of office, and it will be driven through right from the very top.
We must move on.
Because we have a long-established policy which is sensible and important. It is important also that Britain remains part of the negotiations, because we are going to be affected by the single currency. Frankly, whether we're in or out of the single currency, we're going to be affected by it. And I want to see Britain adopting a relationship in Europe where we can lead again.
So it's not ruled out joining this thing in the next Parliament?
The option remains open, as indeed Robin himself said, but it is a matter of common sense for obvious reasons. It is highly unlikely we'll be in the first wave, and that then reduces the probability, as Robin was saying, that you'd enter in the next Parliament. But the option remains open, and what is essential in Europe is we start to rebuild a relationship in this country where we're leading again in Europe.
How do you do that?
We do it by going out with an agenda for reform in Europe and ensuring that the position of Britain is not determined, as it is in the Conservative Party, by internal party divisions, but determined by genuine British interest. Now, let me give you some examples. Look, the importance of being part of the social chapter is that an empty chair policy is not sensible. But what worries business is not what is in the social chapter now.
What worries business,
because I was just about to explain to you the key areas that business is concerned about. Social security costs being imported in from abroad requires unanimity. Now, that's why we can insist upon it. And furthermore, we have made it absolutely clear in any negotiations over the social chapter that we want it to promote flexibility, not end up with an overly rigid labour market.
Don't you
I mean, that's a parody of my position.
Well, I'm quoting from you when you say that.
Yes, but that is drenched entirely out of context. Look, of course there are circumstances in which you're going to be isolated. I've said this myself on many occasions. Of course there are times when you're going to have to stand alone. But the judgment should be not to pursue isolation as if that were the goal of policy, but to pursue Britain's best interests. You take BSE. I mean, here we are with this government. I mean, I heard Mr. Major say yesterday, well, what's it going to be like in these Amsterdam negotiations, this chap? A year ago, the ban was put on. Then we had the beef war. Then Mr. Major tells us he's going to be able to lift it within months. Here we are now in April 1997, and not a single thing has been done in British interest. Now, that is not a British government getting the best out of Europe. The single market, the common agricultural policy, enlargement to the east in Europe, all these things Britain could have a positive, decent policy on and be leading in Europe, not following behind. David, I publicly said it just a few days ago, and I'm perfectly happy publicly to repeat it. We have made it clear throughout that we wanted this debate, but we're not playing games with the Tories. And what happened in those negotiations were that the moment it looked as if the negotiations were about to succeed, they pulled out. So let us have a proper debate about the issues in the election.